Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the message that had just arrived from Earth. His jaw tightened as he read the words again. The Galactic Council had voted against humanity. Again. It had been 23 years since Earth joined the Council. 23 years of being treated like children by alien species who had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. The humans were newcomers, and the Council never let them forget it. Jake crumpled the digital report in his hand. The Crethean Empire was claiming 3 human colony worlds. They said the planets belonged to them, that humans had built homes on their ancestral territory. The Council had voted 38-9 in favor of the Cretheans. Earth had 30 days to evacuate nearly 5 million people or face military action. Ambassador Lisa Chen had fought hard at the Council headquarters. She had argued, presented evidence, and demanded fairness. The other species had barely listened. One delegate had even told her that humanity should be grateful to even have a voice in Council matters. Jake walked to the window of his ship. Outside, stars stretched endlessly in all directions. Somewhere out there, on 3 beautiful worlds, millions of humans were living their lives. Farmers, teachers, children playing in parks. They had built entire communities from nothing. And now some empire that had never set foot on those worlds wanted them gone. Admiral? Captain Ryan Hayes stepped onto the bridge. He was young for a captain, only 32. But he had proven himself in border skirmishes. Orders from Earth just came through. Laugh. Jake turned to face him. Let me guess. Ryan nodded. The president was clear. We protect our people by any means necessary. Any means necessary, Jake repeated. He had been in the military for 40 years. He knew what those words really meant. It meant war. On New Haven, the outermost of the 3 disputed colonies, people were scared. The news had spread fast. Everyone knew the Cretheans were coming. Some wanted to leave, to pack up and run back to Earth, but most refused. Captain Danny Park, leader of the Colonial Defense Force, stood in the town square addressing a crowd. We built this world with our own hands, he said. Every building, every farm, every road. This is our home. And no one is going to take it from us. The crowd cheered. They were brave. But Danny knew the truth. His defense force had 12 ships. Old ships. If the Cretheans came with their fleet, there was little he could do. Back at Council headquarters, Dr. Sophie Martinez was working late in the Xenobiology Research Center. She was supposed to be studying alien plant life, but tonight she was doing something else. She had access to the Council's historical database, and she had been finding disturbing information. Over the past 2,000 years, the Council had destroyed 14 emerging species, 14 civilizations that had been wiped out completely. The official records called them necessary interventions. The species had been too aggressive, too unpredictable, too dangerous to exist alongside Council members. Sophie's hands shook as she read the files. The pattern was always the same. The Council would find an excuse to provoke the emerging species. When that species fought back, the Council would declare them a threat and eliminate them. She realized with horror that humanity was next. The Crethean land claim was too convenient, too perfectly designed to force a human response. The Council wanted Earth to fight back. They wanted an excuse. Sophie copied the files onto a secure data chip and hid it in her jacket. She had to get this information back to Earth, but she had to be careful. If the Council discovered what she knew, she would disappear. 3 days later, the Crethean fleet arrived at New Haven. 200 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. They were massive vessels, each one 3 times the size of the largest human ship. Admiral Morrison's fleet was already there, waiting. 35 ships positioned between the Cretheans and the colony. It looked hopeless. The humans were outnumbered, almost 6-1. Captain Ryan Hayes stood on the bridge of his heavy cruiser, the Defiant. His crew was silent, watching the enemy fleet approach on their screens. Every person on that ship knew they were probably going to die. "Captain," his weapons officer said quietly, "they're hailing us." The Crethean commander appeared on screen. He was a massive creature, covered in thick armor plating. His 4 eyes looked at Ryan with something like amusement. "Human vessel," the Crethean said. "You are ordered to withdraw. This system belongs to the Crethean Empire. Your colonies have 24 hours to evacuate." Ryan felt his anger rising. These worlds belong to the people who built communities on them. "Leave now, while you still can," the Crethean commander laughed. It was a harsh, grinding sound. "You dare threaten us? You have 35 ships. We have 200. Do you even understand mathematics, human?" "We understand that you're about to make a terrible mistake," Ryan replied. The Crethean ended the transmission, still laughing. On the Galactic Council station, representatives from 47 species watched the confrontation on live feeds. Some looked worried. Most looked amused. The general consensus was that the humans would back down within hours. Several council members were actually taking bets on how long it would take for Admiral Morrison to surrender. Ambassador Lisa Chen sat alone in her quarters, watching the same feeds. She had sent countless messages to the council leadership, begging them to intervene. All had been ignored. She thought about the millions of humans on those colonies. She thought about the crews of those 35 ships, facing impossible odds. On his flagship, Admiral Morrison received the final authorization from Earth. President Helen Foster's message was brief: "Protect our people. Show them what humanity stands for." Jake looked at his command staff. Men and women who had served with him for years. They all knew what was coming. "Battle stations," he ordered. "All ships prepare for combat. And someone send a message to the Cretheans. Tell them this is their last chance to leave peacefully." The message was sent. The Cretheans responded by powering up their weapons. Jake Morrison took a deep breath. Around him, alarms began to sound as his fleet prepared for war. On the view screen, the massive Crethean armada was advancing, confident in their overwhelming superiority. The Cretheans had no idea what was about to hit them. They thought humans were weak, scared, and unprepared. They were about to learn a lesson that would echo across the entire galaxy. Humans were none of those things. And when humanity went to war, they fought like nothing the Council had ever seen before. The first Crethean missiles screamed through space toward the human fleet. Captain Ryan Hayes watched them coming on his tactical display. Hundreds of them, enough firepower to destroy his ship 10 times over. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered calmly. "Launch countermeasures. All batteries, return fire." The Defiant twisted and dove, its engines burning bright. Around it, the other human ships scattered like a school of fish. The Cretheans had expected them to form a defensive line. Instead, the humans broke formation completely, each ship moving independently. The Crethean commander was confused. This was not how civilized species fought. There was supposed to be order, predictable tactics, honor, in battle. Humans did not care about honor. They cared about winning. Ryan's ship launched a swarm of small missiles, each one barely larger than a person. The Cretheans ignored them, focusing on the bigger human vessels. That was their first mistake. The small missiles were not meant to destroy. They were designed to confuse and blind. They exploded in bursts of electromagnetic energy, frying sensors and jamming communications. Suddenly, the Crethean fleet was operating half-blind. Admiral Morrison watched the battle unfold from his command ship. His tactical officer had predicted the Cretheans would attack the moment their ultimatum expired. She had been right. The Cretheans were arrogant, used to enemies who followed the rules of warfare. "Signal all ships," Jake said. "Execute Plan Chaos." Plan Chaos was something the Council had never seen before. It was a human invention, based on old Earth military doctrine. Instead of fighting as a unified fleet, each human ship became its own independent hunter. They used the debris, asteroid fields, and sensor shadows to their advantage. The Crethians had superior weapons and shields, but their ships were big and slow, designed for traditional fleet battles. The human vessels were smaller, faster, and commanded by captains who thought like predators. Captain Ryan Hayes brought his ship screaming past a Crethian cruiser at point-blank range. His weapons officer fired everything they had directly into the enemy's engine section. The Crethian shields held for exactly 3 seconds before collapsing. The engines exploded, and the massive ship went dark and lifeless. "One down," Ryan muttered. 199 to go. But the humans were taking losses too. A destroyer called the Courage took a direct hit from a Crethian plasma cannon. The ship broke apart. Its crew of 87 lost in an instant. Admiral Morrison watched it happen and felt the familiar weight of command. "Keep fighting," he said quietly to himself. On the planet below, Captain Danny Park and the Colonial Defenders watched the battle in the sky. Every explosion, every flash of light represented lives ending. Human and alien alike. "We have to help them," one of his officers said. Danny shook his head. "Our ships are too small, too lightly armed. We would just get in the way." He hated feeling useless, but he knew the truth. This fight was beyond them. What Danny did not know was that help was already coming. Back on Earth, the moment the Crethians attacked, the entire military had mobilized. 400 warships were being prepared for launch, the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. General Chris Bennett stood in the war room on Earth, coordinating the mobilization. He was a veteran of 3 colonial conflicts and had spent his entire life studying military history. He knew something the aliens did not. Humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They had perfected the art of war. "How long until the fleet is ready?" he asked his aide. 18 hours, sir. We are moving as fast as we can." "Make it 12, Bennett said. "Our people are dying up there. Every minute counts." Back at the battle, something changed. The Crethians realized the humans were not going to surrender. Worse, they realized they were actually losing ships. After 4 hours of combat, 27 Crethian vessels had been destroyed or disabled. The humans had lost 8 ships. The Crethian commander was furious. He sent a message to the council headquarters, demanding immediate military support. The humans were fighting in ways that were forbidden by council warfare treaties. They were targeting life support systems, stranding crews in dead ships. They were using kamikaze drones. They were boarding disabled vessels and killing survivors. At council headquarters, the representatives gathered for an emergency session. The Crethian ambassador stood before them, his voice filled with outrage. "The humans are savages," he shouted. "They do not fight with honor. They are butchers, not soldiers. The council must intervene immediately." Ambassador Lisa Chen stood up from her seat. Her face was calm, but her eyes were cold. "You attacked our civilians," she said. "You gave us 30 days to abandon worlds we have lived on for decades. You came with 200 warships to face 35. And now, you cry about honor?" The Crethian ambassador pointed at her. "Your species is dangerous. You prove it with every action. The council was right to fear you." Lisa smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "If you feared us, you should not have attacked us." The council debated for hours. Some species wanted to support the Crethians. Others were beginning to have doubts. The humans were supposed to be weak and scared. Instead, they were fighting like cornered wolves. Finally, the council voted to stay neutral. Let the Crethians finish what they started. This would teach humanity their place in the galaxy. Dr. Sophie Martinez watched the vote with growing horror. She was still at the council station, still pretending to work on her research. The data chip with evidence of the council's genocides was hidden in her quarters. She needed to get it to Earth, but all transport was being monitored. Then, she had an idea. There was a human freighter leaving the station tomorrow, carrying supplies. If she could smuggle herself and the data aboard, she could get home. Back at the battle, Admiral Morrison was getting reports from his ships. But they were still holding the line. Then his sensors officer shouted, "Admiral!" Multiple contacts jumping in from faster-than-light travel. Reading as Crethean reinforcements. Count is 75 ships. Jake felt his stomach drop. They were already outnumbered. Now the enemy was getting reinforcements. But then his officer spoke again, excitement in her voice. "Wait, Admiral. I am getting new readings. Those are not Crethean ships. They are ours. It is the Earth fleet. 400 ships just arrived." On the view screen, the human reinforcements appeared like a swarm of angry hornets. They had cut their travel time in half, burning their engines at dangerous levels to get there faster. General Chris Bennett's voice came over the communications channel. "Admiral Morrison, this is General Bennett. The United Earth military has arrived. What are your orders?" Jake Morrison looked at the tactical display. The Cretheans now faced over 400 human ships. The odds had just reversed. "General Bennett," Jake said slowly, "I want you to send a message to the Crethean commander. Tell him he has one chance to surrender. If he refuses, we destroy every single ship in his fleet." The message was sent. The Crethean commander's response was predictable. He refused, calling the humans cowards and primitives. "Very well," Admiral Morrison said. He opened a channel to the entire human fleet. 435 ships, carrying the hopes of humanity. "All ships," he said clearly, "you are authorized to engage with extreme prejudice. Show them what happens when someone threatens Earth." The human fleet fell upon the Cretheans like a hammer. There was no mercy, no hesitation. For every human who had died in the first 14 hours of battle, the Cretheans would pay in blood. The battle turned into a slaughter. The Crethean fleet, which had seemed so powerful hours ago, was now surrounded and overwhelmed. Human ships attacked from every direction, coordinating their strikes with deadly precision. Lieutenant Ben Carter led a boarding team onto a disabled Crethean cruiser. His Marines moved through the alien ship with ruthless efficiency. The Cretheans had never experienced close combat before. Council species fought their wars from a distance, with missiles and energy weapons. The idea of soldiers fighting inside a ship was barbaric to them. The humans did not care what the aliens thought was barbaric. Ben's team secured the Crethean ship's bridge in less than 10 minutes. The alien crew surrendered immediately, terrified by the armored humans who fought with a savagery they had never witnessed. "Ship secured," Ben reported to his commander. "Uploading access codes to our network now." Specialist Amy Rodriguez sat in a small fighter craft, fingers flying across her keyboard. She was a hacker, one of the best Earth had. The Crethean command network used quantum encryption, supposed to be unbreakable. But Amy had been studying alien computer systems for 3 years, waiting for this moment. She found a weakness in their security protocol and drove through it like a knife through paper. Suddenly, she had access to the entire Crethean fleet's communications network. "This is Specialist Rodriguez to Admiral Morrison," she said excitedly. "I am inside their network. I can see everything." "Can you disrupt their coordination?" Jake asked. Amy smiled. "Sir, I can do better than that. Give me 5 minutes." She sent false orders across the Crethean network. Ship commanders received contradictory instructions. Some were told to retreat, others were ordered to advance. Their tactical displays showed human ships that did not exist and failed to show ones that did. The Crethean fleet dissolved into chaos. Ships collided with each other. Weapons fired at friendly vessels by mistake. Their organized formation collapsed completely. Captain Ryan Hayes took advantage of the confusion. His ship, the Defiant, had survived the entire battle, with only minor damage. Now he led a squadron of destroyers straight into the heart of the Crethean formation. "Target their command carrier," he ordered. "All weapons, maximum power." The massive Crethean flagship tried to defend itself, but it was too slow. Human missiles slammed into its hull from 6 different directions. Its shields collapsed. A massive explosion tore through the ship's central core. and the carrier broke into 3 pieces. The Krethian commander died with his ship, still unable to understand how this had happened. His fleet had been superior in every way. Bigger ships, better weapons, more experience. Yet the humans were destroying them with what seemed like contempt. On the Galactic Council station, representatives watched in stunned silence. The live feeds showed the Krethian fleet being systematically annihilated. In less than 14 hours of combat with the full human fleet, 178 Krethian ships had been destroyed or captured. Only 22 managed to escape into faster-than-light travel. The human losses were 52 ships, still terrible, still representing thousands of lives lost. But compared to the Krethian catastrophe, it was a decisive victory. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Some species were demanding immediate action against humanity. Others were calling for calm. A few were quietly recalculating their own military strategies, realizing that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had predicted. Ambassador Lisa Chen stood up and walked to the central podium. She did not wait for permission to speak. "Members of the council," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "I have evidence to present." "This is not the time," the council speaker said. "We are dealing with a military crisis." "This is exactly the time," Lisa replied. She activated a holographic display. Dr. Sophie Martinez had succeeded in getting the data chip to Earth, and Earth had forwarded it to Lisa that morning. The display showed historical records. 14 species, all destroyed by Council military action over the past 2,000 years. The files were detailed, showing how each civilization had been provoked, how the Council had manufactured reasons for intervention, how entire species had been systematically eliminated. The Council chamber went silent. Some of the representatives had never seen these files before. Others clearly had. "You have been conducting genocide," Lisa said quietly. "For 2,000 years, you have destroyed any species you deemed too dangerous to exist, and humanity was next on your list." The Krethian ambassador tried to interrupt. "This is propaganda. Human lies to justify their aggression." "These are your own files," Lisa shot back. "From your own historical database, authenticated with Council security codes. The Krethian land claim was manufactured. You wanted to provoke us. You wanted an excuse to eliminate humanity before we became too powerful." Some representatives began shouting denials. Others sat in shocked silence. The truth was out, and there was no way to put it back. The council speaker called for order. "We will investigate these claims. But first, we must address the immediate situation. The Krethian fleet has been destroyed by human forces. This cannot stand. I call for a vote on military intervention against Earth." The vote was called. 34 species voted in favor of intervention. 13 voted against. The motion passed. Lisa Chen watched the vote tally appear on the display. She felt strangely calm. "So you are going to try to destroy us," she said. "The Council will assemble a peacekeeping force," the speaker said. "Earth will be given one chance to submit to Council authority. If you refuse, you will be neutralized." "Neutralized," Lisa repeated. The speaker did not respond. Lisa walked back to her seat and gathered her belongings. She looked at the council members one last time. Some looked angry. Some looked afraid. None looked at her with anything resembling guilt. "I am done with this council," she said. She took her credentials, the badge that marked her as Earth's official representative, and threw it on the floor. "You wanted to see how humans respond when you threaten our existence? You are about to find out." She walked out of the chamber. Behind her, 12 species pledged military forces to the intervention fleet. They began calculating how many ships they would need to overwhelm Earth's defenses. The consensus was 2,000 warships. That should be more than enough to handle a primitive species, like humanity. On Earth, President Helen Foster received the news of the council vote. She stood in the situation room, surrounded by military commanders and advisors. Everyone was waiting for her decision. "They are coming for us," she said. "All of them. How long do we have?" 6 days until their fleet can assemble and reach Earth," General Bennett reported. "Maybe 7. Not enough time to evacuate our colonies," someone said. "Not enough time to prepare proper defenses." President Foster looked at the strategic map on the wall. Earth and its colonies. Small points of light in a vast galaxy controlled by the Council. For 23 years, they had tried to fit in, to be diplomatic, to follow the rules. And the Council had been planning their extinction the entire time. "General Bennett," she said, "activate Protocol Omega." The room went silent. Protocol Omega was a contingency plan that had existed since Earth first joined the Council. It was based on a simple assumption: that the aliens might one day try to destroy humanity. Earth had been preparing for that day, in secret. For over 2 decades. "Madam President," Bennett said slowly, "if we activate Protocol Omega, there is no going back. The galaxy will know what we have been hiding. They are already coming to destroy us," Helen replied. "We have nothing left to lose. Activate it. Show them that Earth does not go quietly into the night." General Bennett nodded and gave the orders. Across Earth and throughout human space, hidden facilities came to life. Weapons, systems that had been concealed for decades, powered up. Battle stations emerged from asteroid fields, where they had been hiding. The Council thought they knew humanity's military capabilities. They were about to discover they had been very, very wrong. Admiral Jake Morrison received new orders as his fleet regrouped near New Haven. He read them twice, hardly believing what he was seeing. "Protocol Omega," he said to himself. He had known about the contingency plan, but had never expected it to be used. Now everything changed. The Council was sending 2,000 ships to destroy Earth. But Earth was not the helpless victim they imagined. Director Paul Stevens stood in a control room buried 3 miles beneath the surface of Mars. He had been waiting for this moment for 15 years. He hoped it would never come, but he had prepared for it anyway. "All Omega stations report ready," his assistant said. "We have full control of the network." Paul nodded. "Activate defensive grid. Let them see what they are really facing." Across human space, 200 battle stations came online. They had been hidden in asteroid fields, camouflaged to look like mining operations or natural rock formations. Each station was armed with weapons that would make the Council's military forces look primitive. Dr. Nicole Grant watched from her laboratory on Luna as her creations were revealed to the galaxy. She had spent 12 years developing weapons that pushed the boundaries of physics, relativistic missiles that traveled at 90% the speed of light, antimatter warheads capable of destroying entire fleets, nanite swarms that could disable ships from the inside. All of these weapons were banned by Council treaties. Earth had signed those treaties in good faith. Then they had discovered the Council's history of genocide and decided that survival was more important than following rules made by potential enemies. "My babies are going to war," Nicole said quietly. She felt no joy, only grim necessity. These weapons existed for one reason only: to make sure humanity survived. The Council fleet assembled at a staging point 30 light-years from Earth. 2,000 warships from 12 different species, all united in their determination to eliminate the human threat. The fleet commanders were confident. Humanity had defeated the Crethians. Yes, but that was a single empire. This was the combined might of the Council. Admiral Vex, a counselor from the Trallian Imperium, commanded the fleet. He had fought in 17 campaigns and never lost. He looked at the tactical display showing Earth's solar system and smiled his species equivalent of a smile. "The humans will surrender when they see our numbers," he told his staff. "If they do not, we will destroy their home world and scatter their colonies. Either way, this ends today." The fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel, heading for Earth. On Luna, Admiral Jake Morrison coordinated the defense from a massive command center. Every human warship had been recalled to the solar system. They had 430 ships, but they were about to fight 5 times that number. Captain Danny Park stood beside him, having been recalled from New Haven, along with the Colonial Defense Forces. He looked at the tactical display and shook his head. 2,000 ships, he said. Even with our hidden weapons, can we win this? We have to, Jake replied. Because, if we lose, humanity ends today. The Council fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. Admiral Vex expected to find human forces scrambling to defend their home world. Instead, he found a carefully prepared kill zone. The battle stations opened fire first. Relativistic missiles launched from hidden positions in the asteroid belt. They accelerated to incredible speeds, covering millions of miles. In seconds, the Council fleet's sensors barely detected them before impact. 3 Council ships simply ceased to exist, torn apart by the kinetic energy of the impacts. The missiles hit with the force of nuclear weapons, turning advanced warships into clouds of superheated plasma. Defensive pattern, Admiral Vex shouted. All ships, evasive maneuvers. But the human attack had just begun. Antimatter warheads detonated among the Council formation, creating miniature suns that vaporized everything within 1,000 miles. Shields designed to stop energy weapons were useless against the raw, destructive power of matter-antimatter annihilation. Commander Kate Sullivan piloted her stealth ship through the chaos. Her vessel was coated with materials that made it nearly invisible to sensors. She led a squadron of similar ships, each one carrying a payload of nanite swarms. They approached a Council carrier, avoiding the massive ship's defensive fire. Kate launched her payload directly into the carrier's hangar bay. Trillions of microscopic robots spread through the ship, disabling systems, cutting power lines, jamming weapons. The carrier went dark within minutes, its crew helpless as their ship died around them. Lieutenant Claire Washington commanded a fighter squadron defending Earth itself. She watched the Council fleet try to push through the defensive stations and felt a savage satisfaction. The aliens had thought this would be easy. They were learning otherwise. Gold Squadron, with me, she ordered. We are hitting their left flank. Make every shot count. Her fighters screamed into battle, small and fast against the lumbering Council ships. They used the debris field from destroyed vessels as cover, striking and vanishing before the enemy could respond. Ensign Matt Torres found himself in a desperate situation. His ship had taken damage, engines failing, life support critical. But he saw an opportunity. A Council command ship was moving through a narrow gap in the defensive grid. This is Torres to command, he said calmly. I have a shot at their command vessel, but I will not make it out. Admiral Morrison's voice came back immediately. Torres, find another way. We do not waste lives unnecessarily. Sir, this is not a waste, Matt replied. He turned his dying ship toward the enemy command vessel and pushed his engines to maximum. This is for Earth. He slammed into the Council ship at full speed. The explosion destroyed both vessels, but it also created a gap in the Council's formation that human forces immediately exploited. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Council fleet had started with 2,000 ships. Now, they had less than 1,200. Their commanders were in shock. How could the primitives have such weapons? How could they fight with such ferocity? Admiral Vex realized they had made a terrible mistake. The intelligence reports were wrong. The humans were not cornered prey. They were apex predators defending their territory. All ships, he ordered, prepare to retreat. This battle is lost. But the humans were not done. Admiral Morrison had given orders that no Council ship was to escape. They had come here to exterminate humanity. Now, they would learn the price of that decision. Pursuit groups hunted down fleeing Council vessels. Commander Kate Sullivan's stealth squadron disabled their faster-than-light drives, leaving them stranded in space. Lieutenant Claire Washington's fighters strafed them with weapons fire. One by one, the Council ships were destroyed. Only 200 ships managed to escape, jumping away with their drives badly damaged. They left behind 1,800 wrecks, floating in space around Earth's solar system. The human losses were 94 ships destroyed and hundreds more damaged. It was a terrible price. But they had won. Earth had survived. Admiral Morrison stood in the command center, surrounded by exhausted officers. They had just fought the largest space battle in human history and emerged victorious. "Get me a communication link to the Galactic Council headquarters," he ordered. The link was established. Every council member could see Morrison's face on their displays. Behind him, the debris field of their shattered fleet was clearly visible. "Members of the council," Jake said, his voice hard as steel. "You came here to destroy humanity. You brought 2,000 ships to exterminate our species. This is what remains of your fleet." He gestured to the wreckage floating in space. "You wanted to know how humans respond to threats of extinction? Now you know. We do not surrender. We do not beg for mercy. We fight with everything we have, and we win." He paused, letting his words sink in. "This is your only warning. Leave humanity alone. Leave our colonies in peace. Stay away from our space. Because if you come for us again, we will not just defend ourselves. We will come for you. Every council world, every military base, every station. We will teach the galaxy what happens when you try to exterminate Earth." The transmission ended. In the council chamber, there was absolute silence. 2,000 ships had been reduced to 200. The greatest military force the council had assembled in centuries had been destroyed in a single battle. The humans had not just won. They had sent a message written in the wreckage of the council fleet. A message that echoed across the galaxy. "Do not threaten Earth." 3 days after the battle, Earth's fleets jumped into council space. They were not coming to negotiate. They were coming to finish what the council had started. Admiral Jake Morrison led the assault on the council's primary military shipyard at Kelvor Station. The station was massive, capable of building 50 warships at a time. It represented centuries of accumulated technology and industrial power. It took the human fleet 40 minutes to destroy it completely. General Chris Bennett coordinated ground operations on 3 council military installations. His Marines landed with overwhelming force, seizing weapons caches and shutting down defense networks. The council species had armies, but they had not fought ground wars in thousands of years. They had forgotten how. Humans had not forgotten. They had been fighting on the ground since they lived in caves and threw rocks at each other. Captain Ryan Hayes led a strike force that destroyed the Council's deep space surveillance network. Without it, the Council could not track ship movements or coordinate their remaining forces. They were effectively blind. The Council's member species panicked. Some tried to mobilize their remaining military forces. Others simply surrendered, declaring neutrality and begging Earth to spare their worlds. Within a week, Earth's forces had struck 23 separate military targets across Council space. They had avoided civilian casualties as much as possible. But the message was clear. Humanity could reach anywhere in Council space. Anywhere at all. Ambassador Lisa Chen returned to the Council station, but not as a supplicant. She arrived on Admiral Morrison's flagship, escorted by a full battle group. The Council members watched through their windows as the human warships took up positions around their headquarters. Lisa walked into the Council chamber. No one tried to stop her. "Members of the Council," she began, "Earth has demands." The Council speaker started to object, but Lisa cut him off. "You will listen," she said coldly. "You have no military power left to resist. Your fleets are destroyed. Your installations are in ruins. So you will sit there, and you will listen to what humanity requires." She activated a display showing the evidence Dr. Sophie Martinez had discovered. "First, there will be a full investigation into the genocide of 14 species. Those responsible will stand trial. Second, reparations will be paid to humanity for the attempted extermination of our species. Third, the Council will be restructured. Earth will have veto power over any military action. Fourth, new laws will protect emerging species from the kind of predatory behavior you have shown. The council members looked at each other. Some were angry. Most were simply afraid. And if we refuse? The counselor from the Draxian Collective asked. Lisa looked at him calmly. Then we will continue our military operations until there is no council left to refuse. The silence that followed was complete. Not a single council member spoke. They had come to understand that humanity meant every word. For 20 minutes, the council chamber was wordless. Representatives who had ruled the galaxy for millennia found themselves powerless before a species they had dismissed as primitive. Finally, the council speaker called for a vote. The resolution to accept all human demands passed unanimously. No one dared vote no. The Krethian Empire collapsed within a month. Their military had been destroyed, and their subject species revolted. The empire that had started the war with Earth simply ceased to exist. 3 council species declared that they would follow Earth's leadership instead of the council's. They signed mutual defense treaties with humanity and opened their borders to human trade and settlement. The rest of the council members tried to maintain dignity, but everyone knew the truth. Earth was now the dominant military power in the galaxy. When humans spoke, the galaxy listened. Dr. Sophie Martinez led the reconciliation efforts. She traveled to council worlds, meeting with leaders and citizens. Many aliens were genuinely horrified when they learned about the genocides. They had trusted their government and never questioned the official history. We are not your enemies, Sophie told them. We never wanted this war. We just wanted to survive. President Helen Foster addressed the Reformed Council 6 months after the war ended. She stood where Lisa Chen had once begged for fairness and been dismissed. Humanity does not seek an empire, she said. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We want peace, trade, and mutual respect. But understand this. We will never again allow ourselves to be threatened. We will never again trust our survival to the goodwill of others. She looked around the chamber. Earth will maintain the strongest military in known space. We will use that power to protect not just ourselves, but any species that faces the kind of persecution we faced. The Council's days of bullying weaker species are over. The representatives listened in silence. Some appreciated the promise of protection. Others resented being lectured by humans. None dared to argue. Admiral Jake Morrison retired from military service after the war. He had spent 43 years in uniform, and he was tired. On his last day, President Foster awarded him the highest honor Earth could give. You saved our species, she told him during the ceremony. The galaxy will remember your name for 1,000 years. Jake smiled sadly. I wish none of it had been necessary. I wish they had just left us alone. So do I, Helen replied. But they did not. And you made sure we survived. Captain Ryan Hayes took command of Earth's new flagship, the Terran Pride, stationed at the Council headquarters. His job was to remind the galaxy that humanity was watching. Commander Kate Sullivan became head of Earth's intelligence service, ensuring that humanity would never again be caught unprepared. Dr. Nicole Grant continued her weapons research, but now she also worked on defensive technologies. We proved we can win wars, she said. Now we need to work on preventing them. All BMT and why. Ambassador Lisa Chen became the first human Secretary General of the Reformed Galactic Council. It was a position that had never existed before, created specifically to ensure that no single species could dominate the Council as they once had. On her first day, she stood in the chamber where she had once been dismissed and belittled. The same representatives who had ignored her pleas now hung on her every word. The Council was built on a lie, she told them. The lie that might makes right. That advanced species could do whatever they wanted to weaker ones. Humanity has shattered that lie. We have shown that the strong can be beaten by the determined. She paused, looking at each representative. We have a choice now. We can build a new council based on justice and equality, or we can return to the old ways and see if anyone else decides to respond the way Earth did. I know which future I want. The question is, what do you want? The vote was unanimous. The council would reform, new laws would protect emerging species. Military actions would require approval from multiple species, not just a majority vote. And Earth would have the power to stop any action they deemed unjust. 1 year after the war, there was a memorial service on Earth for the 3,000 humans who had died in the fighting. Their names were carved into a massive wall of black stone in Washington. President Foster spoke at the dedication. "They died so that humanity could live," she said. "They died so that we could remain free. We will honor their sacrifice by making sure no species ever again faces the choice between extinction and submission." The crowd was silent, remembering the dead. Among them were Admiral Morrison, Captain Hayes, Dr. Martinez, and thousands of others. All of them had fought or lost someone in the war. At the council station, a delegation of young students from a newly discovered species arrived. They were nervous, afraid of the great powers that controlled the galaxy. Ambassador Lisa Chen met them personally. "Welcome to the council," she told them. "Do not be afraid. The old rules are gone. Here, your voice matters as much as anyone else's. And if anyone tries to threaten you, Earth will stand with you." The young aliens looked at her with hope. For the first time in the council's history, small species did not have to live in fear. The galaxy had learned a lesson written in fire and blood. Humanity had responded to the threat of extinction with a brutality that left the council wordless. They had fought with a savagery that shocked civilized species. They had won wars that should have been impossible. But more importantly, they had changed the galaxy itself. The old order of powerful species dominating weaker ones was broken. In its place was a new council, where all species had protection, where might did not make right, where genocide was no longer a tool of policy. Humanity had not wanted to be warriors. They had wanted to be explorers, scientists, diplomats. The council had forced them to become something else. And in becoming that, they had saved not just themselves but countless other species who would have been the council's next victims. Earth's brutal response had left the Galactic Council wordless. But it had also left the galaxy better than it was before. That was humanity's real victory. Not the battles won or the enemies defeated, but the future they had secured for everyone. On a human colony world, children played under alien suns, never knowing how close they had come to never existing. On Earth, people went about their lives, building and creating and dreaming. Across the galaxy, new species joined the council without fear, protected by laws that finally meant something. And in orbit around Earth, the human fleet stood watch. Silent, powerful, and ready. They would never again allow their species to be threatened. They would never again trust that the galaxy meant them well. Humanity had learned that survival sometimes requires terrible choices. That peace must be protected by strength. That when faced with extinction, there can be no mercy and no surrender. The galaxy had learned something too. It had learned that humans were not to be trifled with. That pushing them to the brink would unleash something primal and unstoppable. That Earth's response to threats was swift, brutal, and total. The council chambers remained silent whenever the topic of humanity came up. What else was there to say? Earth had spoken, and the galaxy had listened.